The shower triangle. The metal door slammed shut behind him with a hard thud, the kind that sends a shock straight through your chest. It was January 2024, deep inside Rikers Island's infamous R&DC facility, the unit known for some of the most unpredictable inmate conflicts in New York City. The air smelled like bleach, sweat, and old steel. And at the center of it all was Marcus Hill, a 22-year-old detainee from Bronx who'd only been on the island for 6 days. But today, he was standing in the most dangerous place in the entire building. The shower triangle, a narrow, blind corner stretch between the showers and the day room that officers couldn't see unless they walked all the way in. Everyone inside Rikers knew the rule. If someone corners you here, nobody is coming for you. Marcus felt the heat of the steam rising around him, mixing with a cold fear crawling up his spine. His heart thumped like a drum. 3 inmates, all older, all heavier, all residents of the tier long before he arrived, stepped into the triangle and blocked the exit. They didn't shout. They didn't threaten. They didn't need to. Their silence said everything. Marcus swallowed hard. He knew exactly why they were here. He'd made the mistake of accepting a commissary snack earlier that morning, a honey bun that one of them slid across the table with a grin. To a newcomer, it looked friendly, but inside Rikers, everyone knows. Nothing is free. Every favor has a price. Every debt must be paid. Marcus backed up slowly until his shoulders touched the cold tile wall. The steam thickened. The room grew quiet. The sounds of the jail, slamming gates, yelling, metal creaking, faded into the background. It was now just Marcus and them. One of the inmates stepped forward, cracked a smile, and whispered, "You know what time it is, lil' bro." Marcus's stomach dropped. Because now, trapped in the shower triangle, he had to make a choice, the kind of choice that determines whether you survive Rikers Island or get swallowed by it. He took a breath, lifted his chin, and then, cut. What happened next? How did Marcus even end up in this situation just 6 days after arriving? And how do people, real people, manage to protect themselves, avoid traps, and survive inside one of America's most dangerous jail complexes? Let's go all the way back to day one on the island. When Marcus first arrived on Rikers Island on January 5th, 2024, he had no idea how fast life inside could shift from calm to chaos. He stepped off a Department of Correction bus in handcuffs, wearing the same gray hoodie he'd been arrested in, and instantly felt the cold wind blowing across the bridge from Queens. Officers lined the intake hallway, shouting orders as detainees shuffled forward. Rikers wasn't a prison. Not technically. It was a jail, meant for people awaiting trial or serving short sentences. But the moment Marcus walked in, he realized something. Labels don't matter here. Only survival does. The first thing he saw was the intake bullpen, a large room filled with plastic seats, flickering lights, and dozens of detainees from all over New York City. Some paced. Some slept. Some stared at the floor with a look he couldn't quite describe. Part fear, part exhaustion, part acceptance. Then he saw the wall. A giant board listing the most recent incidents. Fight in a block, 8:13 a.m. Medical emergency, 9:52 a.m. Use of force, 10:27 a.m. Assault on staff, 11:05 a.m. And it was only noon. Marcus realized something else. There are no slow days at Rikers. He found a seat and sat quietly, repeating what an older man in the holding cell at Queen's Criminal Court had told him. Listen, kid, don't talk too much. Don't stare too long. Don't touch nothing that ain't yours. And whatever you do, don't owe nobody. At the time, it sounded simple. Inside Rikers, it meant everything. Hours passed. The room grew louder. Detainees were processed, fingerprinted, photographed, evaluated by medical staff, and interviewed about gang affiliations, a mandatory step meant to prevent housing conflicts, though everyone knew it didn't always work. When Marcus's turn finally came, an officer escorted him down a long hallway past thick glass windows where officers monitored the units. He heard shouting echoing from behind the doors. The whole building felt alive, breathing, rumbling, vibrating like something waiting to explode. He was assigned to R&DC, the Robert N. DeWarren Center, a facility notorious for its violence, especially among younger detainees. As he stepped inside for the first time, The smell hit him, a mix of disinfectant, old concrete, and the kind of sweat that comes from constant tension. A correction officer buzzed him into his housing unit, and instantly a dozen sets of eyes locked on him. Some curious, some cold, some calculating. Everybody in there wanted to know the same thing. Who was this new guy? Where was he from? Did he have people? Was he easy prey, or someone to avoid? Marcus walked to his assigned bunk, bottom bunk, corner of the dorm, next to a broken window covered by a sheet of plastic that fluttered in the cold air. A few inmates nodded at him as he passed. Others sized him up like he was a puzzle they planned to solve later. Within minutes, someone approached him, a short guy named Trey, wearing county-issued greens and a pair of slides. "Yo, you just got here?" "Yeah." "You good?" "I'm straight." "You got people?" "Nah, just me." Trey nodded, then casually handed him a small packet of ramen. "Welcome to the island." Marcus hesitated, remembering the rule about not accepting favors, but Trey smiled in a way that made him think refusing might be rude. "Cool," Marcus said quietly, tucking the ramen under his mattress. That was the moment he made his first mistake. Not long after, the unit broke out into noise as a TV switched to local news, and the detainees argued over which channel to watch. Some wanted sports. Some wanted music. A few just wanted the noise to drown out the tension. The chaos was constant but predictable, almost like background static. Marcus stayed low, watched, listened, and kept to himself. But Rikers had a way of testing people fast. Later that night, during count, when officers ordered everyone to stand by their bunks, a fight erupted at the far end of the room. 2 detainees crashed into metal tables, fists flying. Officers rushed in. Pepper spray filled the air. Everyone else backed up, coughing and covering their faces. Marcus stood frozen, watching what felt like a scene from a war zone. Flashing lights, yelling, metal clattering, chaos everywhere. He thought, how am I supposed to survive this place? But survival inside Rikers isn't about strength, size, or even aggression. It's about understanding the invisible rules, the ones that can protect you or destroy you. Over the next few days, Marcus learned those rules the hard way. Rule number 1, never accept gifts. They become debts. Rule number 2, always watch the day room tables. That's where alliances form and problems start. Rule #3***. Stay out of blind corners. ***. The shower triangle. The day room back wall. The staircase landing. More things had happened in those corners than anyone ever talked about openly. But despite being careful, Marcus slipped again on day 6. It happened at breakfast. He was halfway through his tray, watery scrambled eggs, stale bread, and something that looked like oatmeal, when one of the older guys slid a honey bun onto the table in front of him. "On me, lil bro." Marcus didn't realize the trap until it was too late. He took the honey bun, nodded thanks, and kept eating. The man smiled. Not a friendly smile, a territorial one. And that single moment brought us straight back to where we started. Marcus trapped in the shower triangle, with 3 inmates blocking his exit, ready to collect on the small favor he never should have accepted. And now, everything hangs on what he decides to do next. The price of a honey bun. The tile wall behind Marcus felt like ice press against his shoulders. The steam drifting around him made the men in front of him look like shadows, tall, silent, and planted firmly between him and the exit. Every instinct inside him screamed to run, but there was nowhere to go. This wasn't a hallway. This wasn't a bathroom. This wasn't even a normal conflict zone. This was a shower triangle, a place every inmate, from the newest arrival to the most seasoned detainee, knew to avoid unless they were absolutely sure they weren't being followed. Marcus replayed the last 6 days in his head like a movie he wished he could rewind. How something as simple as a honey bun, a dollar snack, could turn into a moment like this. Inside Rikers, small things carried huge consequences. A honey bun wasn't breakfast. It wasn't dessert. It was a contract, whether you realize it or not. And Marcus had signed his name on that contract the moment he took it. The tallest man, the one who'd given him the honey bun, stepped a little closer. Marcus recognized him. Lenny Carter, 28 years old, from East New York. Everyone on the tier knew him, not because he was the biggest or the strongest, but because he controlled the dayroom without ever raising his voice. Lenny wasn't a shot caller for a gang, at least not officially, but his influence ran deep. He wore his greens loose, walked slow, talked slower, and never laughed. People like Lenny didn't need to threaten you. Their presence alone was a threat. Lenny leaned against the wall opposite Marcus and said calmly, 6 days, bro, 6. And you already forget how this place works. The 2 other men flanked him, Pico, a wiry guy with a tattooed forearm, and Mo, built like a refrigerator with arms. Pico cracked his knuckles. Mo didn't do anything except watch Marcus with a deadpan stare. Marcus swallowed. I didn't ask for anything. We know, Lenny replied. That's a point. He said it like he was explaining the weather. Plain, matter-of-fact, nothing emotional. The kind of tone that made the message even more dangerous. Marcus's brain raced. He needed to say something. Anything. Look, I don't want no trouble. My mistake. I'll pay it back. I got commissary coming next week. Pico scoffed and stepped forward. Commissary don't fix disrespect. Marcus blinked. Disrespect? I didn't disrespect nobody. Lenny tilted his head. You took something without knowing the rules. That's disrespect to the system in here. And if you don't learn today, then you ain't gonna survive past next week. Marcus felt his chest tighten. The steam made it hard to breathe. He could hear footsteps outside the shower area, voices, a cart rolling, someone laughing in the hallway. Nobody knew what was happening in here. Nobody would intervene unless it got loud. And if it got loud, things would already be bad. Lenny's tone remained casual. Too casual. We ain't here to hurt you, lil' bro. Not if you smart. We here to see if you understand the rules. Marcus kept his eyes up. Never looked down. Never show fear. What do you want? He asked quietly. Lenny didn't answer immediately. He let the silence hang until it pressed into Marcus like a weight. Then he said, simple. I gave you something. Now you give something back. Everybody contributes. That's how this tier works. Marcus frowned. Contribute how? Pico grinned. There it is. The real question. Lenny toned and slowly began walking toward Marcus. Not fast. Not aggressive. Controlled. Some guys clean up. Some guys hold the phones. Some guys make sure officers don't walk in at the wrong time. Some guys handle tasks. Marcus didn't like the sound of tasks. He kept his breathing steady. I'm not doing nothing illegal. Pico snorted. Mo finally moved, cracking his neck. Lenny smiled, the type of smile that wasn't really a smile at all. Illegal. Lenny said, Bro, we in Rikers Island. Breathing in here feels illegal. Marcus didn't move. He didn't blink. He felt the cold wall behind him and thought of home, of his mother waiting for updates, of his lawyer telling him his case might take months, maybe longer. Being stuck here wasn't temporary anymore. It was survival on a clock that reset every 24 hours. Lenny stopped just a few inches from him. You got a choice, he said softly. Everybody gets one chance to show what side they're on. You want safety? Respect? A smooth stay? Then step up. If not, well... He glanced over his shoulder toward the exit. That's when accidents happen. Marcus's pulse hammered in his neck. He knew exactly what Lenny was offering. Protection, but at a cost. Participation, but without knowing the price. Survival, but not on his own terms. And he also knew something else. Once you agreed to be someone's helper on Rikers, you rarely got to walk away. Marcus forced himself to breathe. You want me to hold a phone? What's the cost? Clean up, he asked. Pico leaned forward. We need you to do something tonight. Something light. Something to see if you're good material. Marcus's stomach dropped. What task? He asked. Lenny didn't answer immediately. He stepped back, examining Marcus the way someone inspects a tool before deciding whether it's useful. You're gonna find out later, Lenny said. Right now, you only got to say one word. Mo folded his arms. Pico smirked. Lenny stared directly into Marcus's eyes. You in or you out? Marcus felt the steam thicken around him like fog, trapping him inside a moment that could change his entire stay on Rikers Island. If he said in, He wasn't free anymore. He belonged to a system inside the system. If he said out, then he had no allies, no protection, and a target on his back before the sun even set. His heartbeat echoed in his ears. He looked at the exit. He looked at the men blocking it. He looked at the dripping pipes above him. Then something unexpected happened. From outside the shower area, a loud bang echoed, followed by shouting, boots running, and the unmistakable alarm tone of officers responding to an incident in the day room. Lenny turned his head. Pico cursed under his breath. Mo stepped back instinctively. The universe had just handed Marcus a few seconds, maybe the only second he'd get. But what was he supposed to do with them? Stay silent? Agree to Lenny's terms? Slip past him and run? Or take a gamble that could either earn respect or get him hurt? Marcus felt the adrenaline surge through him, because now the window was open. Not a physical window, but a moment where the balance of power shifted. And he had to choose, fast. Before Lenny turned back, before the noise settled, before the opportunity disappeared. Marcus took a breath. And then, cut. Marcus didn't think. His body moved before his mind caught up. The loud bang from the day room echoed again, followed by an officer's voice shouting orders in that sharp, commanding tone that always meant someone was either fighting or about to. For a split second, all three men in front of him shifted their attention toward the sound. That was all he needed. Marcus slid sideways along the wet tile, ducking under Pico's arm before Pico even realized what was happening. His shoulder scraped the wall. His foot slipped for half a second, but adrenaline kept him upright. He shot past them, heart hammering so hard it made the noise in the hallway fade to a distant hum. Yo! Pico snapped, turning. Mo took a step after him, but Lenny held up a hand. Chill, Lenny said quietly, eyes narrowing as he watched Marcus bolt out of the shower area and into the open space near the cells. Let him run. We're not done with him yet. Marcus didn't hear that part. All he heard was his own breathing as he grabbed his towel, his clothes halfway on, water still sliding down his neck. He pushed through the doorway into the hallway just as two officers rushed past toward the day room, keys jangling, radios crackling with fast, clip codes. Inmate-to-inmate altercation. One shouted into his radio, requesting backup in the day room. The energy in the building flipped in seconds. Doors slammed. Voices rose. The distant sound of metal tables scraping echoed down the tier. Somewhere, someone laughed. That strange, nervous laugh people get when chaos breaks out and they're trying to pretend it doesn't scare them. Marcus pressed his back against the wall, clutching his clothes to his chest, trying to steady his breathing. He'd escaped the triangle. For now. But he hadn't escaped the problem. Because out here, where everyone could see him, one thing became painfully clear. If Lenny wanted to finish that conversation, he could do it anytime. In the cell, in the hallway, on the walk to the mess hall. Survival wasn't about dodging one moment. It was about changing the way those moments showed up in the first place. A porter pushing a mop bucket rolled past and glanced at him. You good? New blood? The porter asked. Marcus nodded too fast. Yeah, I'm straight. The porter gave him that look. The look older inmates give younger ones when they recognize fear because they've worn it before. Ham, the porter said. If you got to say it like that, you ain't straight. Dry off and get dressed, little man. This ain't the place to be standing around thinking. He kept rolling. Marcus took a breath, forced himself to move, and headed toward his cell to finish dressing. As he walked, he caught glimpses of the day room through the glass. Two detainees pinned on the floor, officers standing over them, cuffs out, one of them shouting instructions. The TV screen in the background kept playing the news like nothing was happening. Welcome to life on the island. By the time count was cold that afternoon, the unit was buzzing. Rumors spread faster than facts. Some guys said a fight broke out over phone time. Others said it was about someone telling on another inmate to a CO. The real story almost didn't matter. What mattered was the message everyone felt. Nobody was safe from violence. Not in the cells. Not in the showers. Not in the day room. You survived Rikers by learning how to move in between all that. That night, while most of the unit tried to relax before lockdown, Marcus sat on his bunk and replayed Lenny's words over and over. You in, or you out? He thought about the men he'd seen in just a week. The loud ones, Always talking, always arguing, always needing to be seen. The quiet ones, who watched everything, talked to no one, and somehow never seemed to have problems. The religious ones, reading their Bibles or QNS, keeping their heads down, staying close to the chaplain and program officers. The workers, porters, kitchen workers, laundry guys, who moved around more than most and saw everything but rarely got pulled into drama because staff needed them. Inside Rikers, survival wasn't random. It followed patterns. Marcus was just now starting to see them. He thought of day 3, when he met Raymond Uncle Ray Johnson, a 47-year-old detainee who'd been in and out of Rikers since the late 1990s. Uncle Ray sat at the same table every afternoon with a chessboard that barely had all its pieces. He didn't gamble. He didn't join the noise when arguments erupted over TV shows. He just watched. On day 3, Marcus had made a mistake of sitting at a half-empty table nearby, close enough that Uncle Ray could hear him talking to another new guy from Brooklyn about how crazy the place felt. "This unit feel like it's about to explode any second," Marcus muttered. Uncle Ray moved a chess piece and spoke without looking up. "That's because you're looking at it wrong," he said. "This place been exploding for decades. You just walked into the middle of it." Marcus turned. "You been here before?" he asked. Uncle Ray chuckled softly. "I been here when you was in elementary school, little man. I seen this island when they was still calling it Gladiator School. Seen cops and inmates both running wild. Seen the city talk about closing this place more times than I can count. But you know what never changes." "What?" "The rules. The official ones always changing. The unofficial ones, same every year." That day, Marcus had moved to the seat across from him. "What rules?" he asked. Uncle Ray finally looked up, eyes tired but sharp. "First rule, you got to decide what lane you in. Gang lane, worker lane, alone lane, religious lane. You can't be in all of them. You can't float. Floaters drown." He tapped the chessboard. "Second rule, never let nobody make decision for you just because you're scared. Phil have you doing 10 bad moves just to dodge one uncomfortable moment." He moved another piece. "Third rule, you never, ever let something small turn into something big because you're too proud to talk. Pride gets more people hurt in here than anything else." Marcus had listened, nodded, and thought he understood. Now, days later, standing in the shower triangle, he'd almost broken all 3 rules in one moment. He almost joined a lane he didn't understand. Almost let fear decide for him. Almost turned a Honey Bun into a full-time job for Lenny. Back on his bunk, he stared at the ceiling and tried to think like Uncle Ray. If survival was a chessboard, what was his next move? He couldn't run from Lenny forever. That would only make him look weak, and weak people became targets. But he also couldn't say yes to being used as muscle or look out for things that might add charges or get him caught up with officers. He needed a lane. That night, after lights out, as voices dropped to whispers and the unit settled into its uneasy version of quiet, Marcus made a decision. The next morning, he walked to the day room during free time. His heart raced when he saw Lenny sitting at the main table, Pico by his side, Mo leaning back in a plastic chair like a boulder with arms. Guys moved around them, some laughing, some watching, some pretending not to notice. Marcus didn't walk straight to them. That would have looked desperate. Instead, he circled the room once, grabbed a cup of water, and then walked over to Uncle Ray, who was setting up his chessboard like he did every day. "Sit," Uncle Ray said without looking up, as if he'd been expecting him. "Marcus Saturday." "I messed up," Marcus said quietly. "The transfer list." Marcus barely slept. The hum of Rikers at night was impossible to ignore. Metal clanking, distant shouts, the occasional slam of a gate that echoed like thunder. But tonight, the noise wasn't the problem. It was the uncertainty. The officer's announcement kept replaying in his head. "Classification is reviewing housing and job assignments. Some of you're getting moved." Moved. The word carried weight here, a kind most people on the outside would never understand. In Rikers, a transfer wasn't just a relocation. It was a reset, a restart of the invisible politics, unspoken rules, unpredictable personalities, and dangerous hierarchies that defined life inside the island. In RNDC, Marcus had finally gotten a grip. Barely a grip, but enough to stay steady. He found Uncle Ray. He figured out Lenny. He learned the lanes. He understood the flow. A transfer meant starting from zero again. New eyes watching him. New power structures. New traps. New threats. At 6 a.m., the lights flicked on, harsh, fluorescent, and cold. Officers walked through the dorm yelling, "Wake up! Count time!" The sound of feet hitting the floor filled the room. Plastic mattresses shifted. Toilets flushed. Bodies sat up, groaned, stretched, complained. Marcus rubbed his eyes and sat up slowly. Today felt different. He could feel it in the air, sharp, tense, buzzing with that strange pre-storm energy that meant something was about to shift. After count cleared, breakfast came. Trays filled with rubbery pancakes and a scoop of syrup that tasted like caramel mixed with sugar water. Guys argued over the juice cartons. Someone cracked a joke that made half the room laugh. Someone else cursed at the officer who handed him the wrong tray. Normal morning chaos. But even beneath that, everybody's eyes kept drifting toward the CO desk, waiting for the list. At 8:15 a.m., Officer Delgado walked in holding a stack of papers that might as well have been a stack of firecrackers. Conversations died. Chairs stopped squeaking. Even the loudest guys stepped closer to hear. "All right, listen up." Delgado shouted. "If I call your name, get your stuff together. You getting moved." A mix of groans, curses, and nervous whispers rippled through the unit. Marcus felt his heartbeat climb into his throat. Delgado began reading names. Ayers, Brown, Carter, Dixon, Hill. Marcus froze. Hill, his name. He felt a knot tighten in his gut so hard it made him exhale through his teeth. Uncle Ray wasn't here. He had early morning program. Lenny's table was silent. Pico muttered something under his breath. Mo scratched his jaw. But Lenny didn't move. He didn't blink. Didn't watch Marcus pack. Didn't react at all. That scared Marcus more than anything. Because silence in Rikers was never just silence. Officer Delgado kept going. Rodriguez, Taylor, Williams, Young. A few more names. Then, that's it. If your name was called, grab your stuff and line up near the gate. Marcus stood from his bunk. His hands trembled despite him trying to hide it. He folded his blanket, gathered a few items he had, a Bible someone left on the table weeks before, a pencil, a crossword book, his toothbrush, ramen packets he bore from commissary, the small slip of paper with his next court date. He shoved everything into the mesh bag they issued him his first day. Around him, the noise rose again. Some guys teasing friends who were moving, others wishing luck, others laughing like transfers were just another part of life. But to Marcus, this wasn't casual. This was a shift in the chessboard. As he turned to walk toward the gate, he felt eyes on him. Not everyone, but enough to make the hairs on the back of his neck stand. Guys studying him, realizing a new unit was about to get a new face. He was no longer the new guy in RNDC. He was about to be the new guy somewhere else. And new guys always entered at the bottom. When he reached the gate, he stood in line with the others who'd been called. A few looked nervous. A few didn't care. A few looked like transfers were a normal Tuesday for them. Marcus kept his eyes forward. Officer Delgado counted them, made notes on his clipboard, then radioed in. Classification transfer line ready. The gate buzzed open. As they walked out, someone tapped Marcus lightly on the shoulder. He turned and saw Pico. "Lil man," Pico said in a low voice, "don't forget what Lenny told you. Your lane don't disappear just cause you moving." Marcus swallowed. "I remember." "You better," Pico said, smirking, "cause every building got dudes like him, and they can want to know where you stand." Then Pico turned and walked away. Marcus stood still for a second, letting that sink in. It wasn't just RNDC that had these unwritten rules. It was the whole island. They walked down a long corridor known as a channel, a cold, echoing hallway connecting different RNDC buildings. Footsteps bounced off the walls. Other detainees passed by in the opposite direction, escorted by officers. Some looked tired. Some looked angry. Some looked empty, the way people look when the system has passed through them too many times. As the group reached the main classification office, they were told to sit on a metal bench lined against the wall. The fluorescent lights flickered. A bulletin board nearby listed something that made Marcus freeze. Job assignments, kitchen, laundry, porter. His eyes scanned the names. Hill, Marcus, pending. Pending. Not confirmed. Not denied. Just hanging in limbo. His fate wasn't sealed. But it also wasn't secure. The door opened, and a woman in a DOC uniform stepped out. Next 3, she called. Marcus was in the next group. When his turn came, he stepped into a small office with a desk, 2 chairs, and a thick case file sitting in front of a suit-wearing classification officer. The officer looked like she'd been working there long enough to read someone's fate in 10 seconds. She flipped open his file with a sigh. Hill, 22, Bronx. No gang affiliation marked. No previous DOC history. Low aggression rating. Request submitted for work assignment. Her eyes rose. You actually want a job? She asked. Marcus nodded. Yes. Kitchen, porter, laundry, anything. She tapped a pen against the folder. Most young guys say that, but they don't last. Jobs mean responsibility, routine, early wake-ups, less time for nonsense. You ready for that? Yes, Marcus replied. I want something stable. She studied him, expression unreadable. We'll see, she said. Right now, your housing is changing. Your new placement is in, she flipped through pages, Upper North, Dorm 3C. Marcus's heart dropped. He'd heard of 3C. Everybody had. For a second, Marcus thought he misheard him. I heard about you. Those 4 words hit harder than any punch. Slick didn't look like he was bluffing. He stood there with that calm, confident posture, like someone who never rushed, never raised his voice, and never said something he didn't mean. Behind him, the noise of 3C kept spilling over. Somebody arguing on the phone, dice hitting the table, TV yelling about a case in Manhattan criminal court. Marcus swallowed. Heard what? Slick smirked, eyes never leaving his. You the kid from RNDC that ran out to shower when a situation popped off and then walked back to the table later to talk it out. He nodded once, almost like he was impressed. That's you, right? Marcus's chest tightened. Word from RNDC had made it all the way here. He tried to keep his face neutral. I ain't run from a fight. I ran from a setup. Slick tilted his head slightly, as if testing that answer. That what you call it? He asked. Because the way I heard it, dudes had you backed into a wall, and you chose your brain over your fists. Then you went back and told them your lane. He said the last word slowly. Lane. Marcus felt a flicker of relief. At least a version that reached 3C wasn't all bad. Is that a problem? Marcus asked. Slick's eyes crinkled a little, like he'd been waiting for that exact question. That depends, he said, on what you say next. Marcus stared back. What do you want to know? Slick stepped a half-inch closer. Not enough to be a threat, just enough to make the conversation feel serious. What lane are you in now? Slick asked. Because in this unit, you don't get time to figure it out. You answer that question wrong, and people will answer it for you. Marcus thought of Uncle Ray. The chessboard, the quiet advice. Work a lane, respect lane, pick it, stand in it. I'm work a lane, Marcus said, trying to get a job. Kitchen, porter, laundry. I stay in programs if they give them to me. I help with reading, writing, paperwork. I don't run with no gangs. I don't start problems. Slick watched his face carefully as he talked, like he was checking if the words matched the eyes. And if somebody brings a problem to you? Slick asked. Marcus didn't look away. I defend myself, he said, but I'm not signing up to be nobody's crash dummy. For a second, there was silence. Then Slick nodded slowly. All right, he said. That sounds like a real answer. Not some I'm just chilling line. You'd be surprised how many dudes come in here with that. He glanced around the dorm. In here, I'm just chilling means I don't know what I'm doing yet. People eat that alive. Marcus stayed quiet. Slick jerked his chin toward an empty table near the back wall. Come on, sit for a minute. Let me catch you up before this unit decides who you are without you saying a word. They walked over. As they sat, a guy brushing his teeth by the sink watched them briefly, then turned away. Another inmate pacing in circles around the dorm adjusted his tempo to avoid walking too close. Everyone noticed. Nobody said it out loud. First thing you need to know about 3C, Slick started, leaning his elbows on the table. This dorm is like the city. You got sections. You got histories. You got people who was already into stuff on the outside. You got people who just trying to make it to their court dates. All of that mixes in here. He pointed subtly with his chin. That corner by the TV, that's mostly dudes who care about sports, gossip, and drama. Loud. Messy. They argue 4 times a day and forget half of it by nighttime. He pointed toward another side. Those bunks by the showers? That's where the short-timers and probation violations end up a lot. They in and out, catching up with dudes they know, running the phones heavy. Finally, he motioned with his eyes toward a row of bunks closer to the officer's cage. Up there? That's old head territory. Legal dudes, readers, jailhouse lawyers. They help people with motions and appeals. Some do it for money, some do it for respect. But they're all watching everything. Marcus followed each look, trying to absorb the layout. The dorm wasn't just random beds and tables. It was a map, a social map. Where do you fit? Marcus asked. Slick almost laughed. Me? I'm in the middle. I don't belong to nobody, but everybody come talk to me when they need something explained. That's my lane. I translate. Rules, vibes, moves. Marcus nodded slowly. And what do people think about me? Slick didn't sugarcoat it. Right now? You're the new kid who came from a unit where you already had a situation, he said. Some people think you soft because you ran. Some think you smart because you didn't let fear make you say yes to something bad. Some don't care at all, but they all know one thing. He paused. You came with a story attached. Marcus's stomach tightened. Is that good or bad? He asked. Slick shrugged. Depends on what you do next. Stories change fast in here. People only remember the last thing you did, not the first. As if on cue, a voice cut through the noise. Yo, new kid. Marcus turned. A tall, bald man with reading glasses hanging around his neck waved a legal pad in the air. He looked to be in his late 30s, with sharp features and tired eyes. You know how to write, the man called. Slick smirked, low enough that only Marcus could hear. See? Word travels faster than you. Marcus walked over. The man held up the legal pad and a pen. I'm Davis, he said. They say you help with writing and paperwork. You that dude? Marcus hesitated, feeling the weight of his answer. Yeah, he said. I can help. What you need? Davis pointed to a half-written grievance form. I got into it with a CO last week over my property. They lost my sneakers when they moved me from OBCC to here in December. I'm trying to file the grievance right so it don't get misplaced. You feel me? Marcus nodded. He'd seen grievance forms before. Boxes for dates, locations, staff names, a space to explain what happened. All of it needed to be clear, calm, and respectful, not just angry. He took the pad and read what Davis had written. It was all emotion and no structure. CO disrespected me, lost my stuff. They playing with me, nobody listening. Marcus took a breath. You mind if I rewrite it clean? He asked. Davis nodded. Do your thing. Young blood. Long as they take it serious. Marcus sat at an empty table and started writing. Inmate Davis, respectfully submits this grievance regarding missing property following transfer from OBCC to RNDC in December 2023. He laid out the facts. Dates, times, property description, the steps Davis had already taken, who he spoke to, what was said, what was promised. He avoided calling any officer out of their name. He stayed within the lines. By the time he finished, the page looked different. Organized. Clear. Harder to ignore. He brought it back. Davis read it slowly, his eyebrows raised. This you? He asked. Yeah. Davis smiled for the first time. Yeah, you can eat off this, he said quietly. Not food. Respect. You keep doing stuff like this for people. It's going to be harder for folks to play with you. Don't stop, He folded the paper carefully. "And don't let nobody use you neither," Davis added. "You ain't nobody's clerk for free. You bound to help, sure, but you decide who and when." Marcus nodded. He walked back to Slick's table, and sure enough, Slick had that look, the wrong discovery. The officers had moved slowly under the mattress, the kind of slow that makes your heart pound loud enough to drown out the whole dorm. Marcus kept his palms flat on the cold metal frame, fighting the urge to look over his shoulder. He didn't move. He didn't breathe too deep. He didn't blink longer than necessary. Behind him, the entire unit sat frozen in place, waiting to see who the unlucky one would be this time. Random shakedowns on Rikers weren't usually random. They were deliberate. Officers often had a target, even if they pretended they didn't. But this one felt different. The search team came straight to his bunk first. The officer lifted the mattress. Foam dust floated in the air. Nothing. For a second. Then, "Hold up," the CO said, reaching deeper. Marcus felt the floor tilt. The CO pulled out a small, rolled-up sock. A sock. Everybody in 3C knew a sock wasn't just a sock. "Let's see what we got," the officer muttered, unrolling it. He tossed the sock onto the bed. Something fell out and hit the metal frame with a clink. It wasn't big. It wasn't flashy. But it was enough to destroy a man's entire life. A small, sharpened toothbrush. A classic Rikers shank. The entire dorm went dead silent. Conversations evaporated. Even the car stopped moving for a second. A shank under a bunk? That was a guaranteed write-up. That was segregation. That was new charges on top of old charges. The officer held it up with tongs. "Whose bunk is this?" he barked. Marcus opened his mouth, but Slick cut in from across the room. "That bunk was empty till this morning. CO," he shouted. "Transfer just brought him in." The officer turned. "I didn't ask you." But Slick kept going. "The last dude in that bunk got moved 2 days ago. Check your records. Check property transfer. You'll know who really left that there." Marcus's eyes widened. Slick wasn't defending him. He was defending the rules. You don't pin a charge on someone who hasn't even dropped a bag yet. The officer frowned, annoyed but listening. He glanced at another CO, who checked a clipboard, flipped pages, frowned, flipped back. 3C bunk 32, previous occupant, moved to Jov C 3 days ago. The officer turned back. "Who searched this bunk after that?" Silence. Nobody answered. No one ever did. Responsibility vanished in the cracks. The officer threw the shank into a collection bin and waved his hand dismissively. "Fine. Move on. Next bunk." The search team walked away. Marcus didn't move for several seconds. He stayed frozen, still gripping the frame, letting his pulse slowly return from a full sprint to something close to normal. When the shakedown ended, people moved like someone pressed play again on the whole dorm. Arguing, laughing, complaining. Some complaining to officers, some whispering to each other. Marcus exhaled and sat on the edge of his bunk. His body felt like it had been holding up a building. Slick walked past him and tapped the bunk with 2 fingers. "Lesson number 1, Slick said. "Never trust a bunk in a new unit. First thing you do when you land, check every inch. Twice." Marcus nodded slowly. "I should have known." "You didn't," Slick said calmly. "But now you do." He paused. "You got lucky." Marcus looked up. "That was luck." Slick shrugged. "Luck and timing. And the fact that the officer didn't feel like doing paperwork." Marcus rubbed his face with both hands. He wasn't just fighting people here. He was fighting the environment. Everything was a trap. Everything was a test. Everything had consequences even when you didn't cause them. Later that day, when free movement opened, Marcus did the smartest thing he'd done since getting to 3C. He found the cleaning supply area and requested a plastic tote bin. He stripped his entire bunk, mattress, sheets, mesh, frame, checked every crack, wiped down every surface, and threw away anything that didn't belong. He wasn't going to get caught slipping again. A few guys watched him. One nodded with respect. One smirked like he saw potential. One just shrugged like this was normal. He didn't care. He wasn't trying to impress anybody. He was trying to survive. Around mid-afternoon, Officer Simmons walked into the unit holding a clipboard. "Worker assignments posted," he shouted. The whole dorm reacted. Guys rushed to the bulletin board. Some cheered, some cursed, some ripped their name tags off in frustration. Marcus didn't move right away. He walked over calmly, staying behind everyone. When the crowd thinned, he scanned the board. Kitchen workers, 8 names. Laundry workers, 6 names. Unit porters, 4 names. Floaters, 2 names. Pending review, 3 names. Then he found it. Marcus, unit porter. Unit porter. Not glamorous, not high status, not a shield from chaos. But it was movement, and movement meant value. Slick walked up behind him. "That's your name?" he asked. "Yeah." "Porter?" "Yeah." Slick nodded like he'd expected it. "Good. That's a clean lane. Staff depend on porters. Inmates rely on them. You stay busy. You stay out the way. But—" he pointed toward 2 men arguing near the TV. "A porter sees everything. So don't get caught being curious. Don't let people use you for access." Marcus nodded. "I hear you." Slick clapped him once on the shoulder. "You can be all right." It wasn't a promise. It wasn't a guarantee. It was acknowledgement. When chow time came, Marcus grabbed his tray, sat alone for a moment, and listened to the unit around him. The chaos, the laughter, the fights brewing, the friendships forming. He realized something important. Rikers wasn't designed to break you. It was designed to test you. Hour by hour, day by day, decision by decision. Some failed. Some adapted. Some never made it out. But those who survived, really survived, did it by staying alert, choosing their lane, setting boundaries, standing on principle when it counted, and knowing when to negotiate instead of fight. As Marcus sat there, his new work assignment slip in his pocket, he finally felt something he hadn't felt since he arrived. A direction. He wasn't safe. He wasn't settled. He wasn't in control. But he had a path. And in a place like Rikers Island, a path could be the difference between chaos and stability, between fear and confidence, between surviving the day and surviving until freedom. Marcus's story wasn't over. It wasn't even halfway done. But for the first time, he felt ready for whatever came next. Because now, he understood the truth. You don't survive Rikers by being tough. You survive by learning the system, before the system learns you. The reality of survival. Rikers Island isn't a place people choose. It's a place people survive. A world inside a world. A system inside a system. Where every choice, even the smallest, can ripple into consequences nobody prepared you for. A honey bun, a bunk, a conversation, a rumor that travels faster than truth, a decision made in a corner that no officer can see. Every moment becomes part of the story you carry with you. Marcus entered the island like so many others, confused, overwhelmed, and believing the biggest danger was violence. But he learned the truth fast. The real danger is misunderstanding the rules. Unwritten rules, invisible lanes, silent agreements, and unspoken expectations. He learned what every detainee eventually learns. People don't survive Rikers because they are the strongest. They survive because they are the most adaptable. They survive because they learn who to talk to, who to avoid, who to trust, and who to never let close. They survive by reading the room long before they speak. They survive by knowing that every gift is a deal, every debt is a risk, and every day is another chance to rewrite your reputation. And as Marcus takes his first steps into life as a unit porter, as he starts building value instead of vulnerability, as he finds his lane and stands in it, he enters the most important phase of survival, becoming someone the system can't easily break. Because surviving Rikers isn't about making it through the day. It's about making it through yourself. Staying focused, staying grounded, knowing when to speak and when to stay silent, when to stand and when to step back, when to defend your dignity, and when to walk away to fight another day. Marcus's journey is far from over. New units, new politics, new conflicts, new tests he hasn't even imagined yet. But now, for the first time, he isn't walking blind. He's moving with purpose, with awareness, with a growing understanding of the invisible structure that decides who sinks and who survives. And as long as he keeps moving with intention, not fear, as long as he remembers his lane, and as long as he doesn't let the island change the core of who he is, he just might make it back to the world outside these walls. Because in Rikers Island, survival isn't luck. Survival is learning. Survival is choosing. Survival is earned.